All right, what is up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Chris, and today, I know it's been a while since I did a video, and I've been kind of waiting till closer till the World Juniors, as we have the tournament starting here on the 20th to the 17th as I'm recording this. But again, here I have Alexander Appleyard on to talk with some World Juniors with me. If you don't know Alex, I would gladly suggest following him on Twitter. He's absolutely unbelievable with the coverage from overseas, from Sweden and Czech Republic, and just all over for Flyers prospects. Alex, how are you? Thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. Yeah, I'm good. I'd love to talk World Juniors. Sad I can't be there in person this year because last year was awesome to attend and see it. But yeah, Flyers have some World Junior prospects in there, and it's going to be fun to see them.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I like, to me, I always kind of find it funny with just the way that the Flyers have had so many good years of the World Juniors. I mean, I know the other day you put out that tweet, the last 8 years, the Flyers have had 3 or more prospects at the World Juniors. They had 9 in 2017. They had 6 in 2018. So, I mean, honestly, it's incredible. I mean, if you literally go back and you look at it from where they started, just from years ago, I mean, the amount of talent that they had and the amount of guys that they had just rolling through the system, and all those guys that played in the World Juniors. I mean, some of them didn't have the biggest roles, but some of them, I mean, were high-end names. We saw Carter Hart twice. Obviously, the past 2 years, you see Cam York and Bobby Brink. So, kind of just going off of that, the Flyers, they have 3 this year. They have Bobby Brink and Cam York for Team USA, and then Emile Andre for Team Sweden. So, overall, it's going to be a pretty good tournament. Last year, they had 4. You had Brink, York, Adam Ginning for Team Sweden, who was the captain, and then you also had Igor Zamula for Team Russia, who was one of Russia's best defensemen, and it was looked at to not even necessarily really do that much, and he shined in the World Juniors. But overall, Alex, just kind of, how do you feel about this World Juniors, especially just like from the Flyers' perspective, with York, Brink, and Andre? Do you think there's any guys that can maybe stand out? Maybe a guy like how Zamula played last year, just have an unbelievable tournament. Or overall, you think it's just going to be a very solid tournament for the 3, or just kind of however you want to kind of break that down there?
I mean, last year was, they had 4 guys there, and all of them played okay, I would say, apart from Zamula, who really shone. But the other 3, Yinning had 1 or 2 highlight plays, but overall was just okay. Brink started the tournament really strongly, got a few points, and then was kind of relegated slightly down the lineup, apart from still maintaining his power play role. And York had multiple injuries going into the tournament, and they still brought him just to play power play, which he did. He was still man the second power play unit at times, was on the first, even though he didn't really play any 5v5. I think this year there's potential for all 3 of the guys to have a more important role. The highlight pick for me is York. Like, that USA roster it's a solid roster, especially up front. But on the back end, I think Cam York is the standout on paper. He's already one of the best defensemen in NCAA. At under 18 level for the world, for USA, he was the guy, on the power play. He was the number 1. He ran the power play, and I think you're going to see him in a similar role now. The only player with a similar level of talent, I think, on the defensive core is Sanderson. Yeah, Sanderson's a bit younger. His game isn't maybe quite as well-rounded yet.
Just drafted too.
Yeah. So I think really you're going to see Cam York go into this tournament as the USA's number 1 defenseman on the top pairing, running the power play. And obviously with that kind of usage, there's the potential for him to not only run up some big numbers, but I think highlight to the world just how good a 2-way player he is. I think because he's not the biggest guy, some people might, instinctively think, maybe he's, not so strong defensively because he does score a lot of points. But I think anyone who watches Cam York knows that he's got extreme poise in the defensive zone. And he's fantastic at exiting the defensive zone. And I think, his defensive game is just as well developed as his offensive game, really.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. I think York's one of those guys that's so calm with the puck because he can. He's able to do that. I mean, I think for the games that I saw him play this year, for pretty much the 4 or 5 games that I had seen for Michigan, he was like, for literally, I feel like a lot of the times he was put into positions to where he was screwed if he didn't make the play, but he was perfect. He had a handful of times where maybe he had a bad play, but when he recovered, it didn't matter because there was essentially nothing there because just the way he recovered, it was phenomenal with it. I've said it before, and again, I don't want to put pressure on him, but just from what I see when he moves the puck, it reminds me of Nick Lidstrom. And that's just me, what I see in my head, what it reminds me of. Um, he is just such incredible poise, and I feel like a lot of the times, if he's put in a bad position, he makes up for it, but he also puts the other guy in a better position too to end up getting a scoring chance or whatever. I thought he was great this year, quarterback in Michigan's power play. Again, he does a lot of things where he's not physical, but he's just like he's physically effective to where he can just get in there, just make a play with his body, or just get in there and just make a play with his stick. But overall, last year, as you said, he was kind of injured. So he was injured. He was also the youngest defenseman, and he played second unit. I was like, that leads me to believe this year, if he's 100% healthy and everything, that I'd have to think that he plays that he's definitely going to play top unit overall. So I agree with you there. I think he's going to play top unit. As for Brink, I thought he had a really good tournament last year, to be honest. I think it was just, for the minutes he got, I thought he was great. I thought he was actually more physical for his size. I feel like he actually used that to his advantage at times, and I feel like he drew a lot of penalties last year too. But overall, I feel like Brink's going to have a very good tournament. I was able to cover one of Denver's games this year for Brink, and I thought overall he was very aggressive on D. He plays in a way where it's like he looks like if he gets that extra step on you, or like if you mess up in the defensive zone, he's right there and he's going the other way for a breakaway, 2-on-1, whatever, or it's a scoring chance. I feel like a lot of times he was playing. I mean, he's listed as a right winger, but I feel like he was playing. It looked like he was playing center at times, just because of the way his back check was and everything. But overall, I feel like he's gonna have a good tournament as well. I don't know what line he'll play. I believe from my memory last year, I think he played third line. I'm not 100% sure on that. I think it was third or second line.
Yeah, I think he played third line for some of the tournament, and some games he basically played fourth line, and then I think he was up on the second one game in effect. I think he's going to have a far bigger role this time. It's going to be interesting to see what line he's going to play on, because the US forward group is extremely talented. One of the most talented groups they've had in a long time, actually, in my personal opinion. But whoever he plays with at center, he's going to have a great player to play alongside. I mean, you've got Turco, you've got Zegras, and then it's going to be interesting to see who fills the 3C role. But maybe it's Matt Benier, who's Cam York's teammate at Michigan.
Yeah, I was thinking Matt Benier's too.
So it's going to be interesting to see which line Brink's on, and some of it will come down to chemistry, I guess. But when you look at the team as well, I think he's got a really good chance to be on power play 1.
I think that's what he played last year too. I honestly think that's what he played last year. I'm not sure.
He played at times on power play 1, but I think a lot of the time he played power play 2 and then switched up. Yeah. Last year, the USA were kind of fiddling at times and then keeping specific lines together and not playing guys who probably should have played a lot more. I think, quite frankly, the coaching last year for the USA was abysmal, and I don't really use that word lightly. It was kind of the talk of the media area, and also some of the scouts last year, just how bizarrely coached they were. So I think this year you'll have a more linear coaching where you kind of guys are in the positions they maybe should be. And I think that means that York and Brink will get some real big playing time. And with Brink as well, I think it's really worth noting that I think Bobby Brink was a first-round talent comfortably in his draft year. I think he was one of the top 15 most talented players in the draft. And the reason he fell is because he's 5'8", and because at the draft his skating the year before had been below average, even for his size. Not just for his size, I mean, overall his skating was below average. But the last year and a half, his skating's really come on a lot. He's been working constantly with power skating coaches over the summer. And now I wouldn't say he's blazing fast, but I would say his speed is around average and his agility is way better than average. So now it's just added that extra facet to his game where he can escape from people easier and get himself in better positions. And he has such a fantastic IQ and great hands and a fantastic passer with a solid shot that he can create from almost any situation. With Denver, he doesn't have the most talented team around him, and he has to do a lot of the work. And as you said, effectively play center in phases of play, because he is the main facilitator for the players on his line, as well as being the most talented player. And the USA, I think that's the national team. I think that's going to be switched slightly, because he's going to have a great facilitator for him at center, who's going to be able to put him in better scoring positions. So I think you'll be able to see him take a few more shots and get into better areas. And on the power play, it's going to be interesting to see the kind of role he plays, because that's going to be a fantastic power play.
Yeah, it's funny too because last year I feel like a lot of the times he was playing where it just seemed like he was very aggressive, just like defensively, and I noticed that a lot. And then, as I said, it just like kind of carried over into this year, which I'm very excited to see how he handles that this year too. But overall, and then you also have Emile Andre. How do you think Andre is going to fit in with this team? Because I've heard that he could fit in as a 7 or 8, but as we talked about before, that might not be too sure. As again, he is, I believe he is. I don't know if he's the youngest player. I know he's their youngest defenseman, but I don't know. Is he their youngest player on the team or no?
No, I think they've got one or two guys younger in the forward group, and they also have Jesper Wallstedt, who's the goalie.
Right.
He's playing with a starting goalie. He's younger than him. But on the defensive core, yeah, he's the youngest player there. He's the only guy who's a 2002 birthday who's been taken. Maybe some of that is due to circumstance because William Wallander might have been taken, although it wasn't certain, but he got coronavirus. And Helge Grans was cut before the tournament. Right. In terms of the role I see him playing, Sweden have a really good top four. They've got Soderstrom, they've got Broberg, and they've got Bjornfot, who are all returning. They were all, Broberg and Soderstrom are first-round picks, top 11 picks, both of them. And Bjornfot was drafted by the Kings, I think, in the 20s as well. And all three of those guys have proven themselves in the SAL already. Soderstrom's playing in the Allsvenskan on a short-term loan right now, but I think he might have been playing potentially NHL this year if it had started for the Coyotes. And Broberg's really talented. He's shown a lot with Skellefteå in the Swedish Hockey League. And then you've got Bjornfot, who is maybe less talented than those two and less offensively skilled, but he's been really solid for Djurgården in the SAL. And then a guy who just missed the cut last year is Johansson, the Red Wings draft pick prospect. But maybe for my money, he's been the best of those four this year in terms of domestic hockey in Sweden, playing for Färjestad. So I think those are the top four defensemen they have. It'll be interesting to see how it goes in terms of pairings, but those four are going to play big roles. And then Andrae, I think, is in the mix for that number 5 role.
Yeah, because as you said, top four is tough.
Yeah, they're all, quite frankly, no knock on Emile Andre, but all four of them are at a higher level than he is right now.
Right.
In the same league. He might be more talented than Bjornfot and Johansson, but he's a year and a bit younger and less physically mature and not as good a skater as them, quite frankly. So I think he'll be in competition for that number 5 role. The other 3 defensemen on the roster, I was kind of surprised who they took, quite frankly. They went extremely Djurgården heavy and took Brandstam and also Hedstrom. And these guys have 9 games of SAL experience between them. Now, they've played okay this year when they've been given a chance in the SAL, but both of them are still playing junior hockey, and neither are lighting it up in junior hockey. I'm really surprised they cut Grans. And you had a guy like Edvinsson and also Anton Olsson, who are draft eligible this year, who I think were playing better in the Swedish Hockey League than them, but these guys are a year older and have some junior national team experience. It would shock me if Andre played below them. He's a better player than both of them at this moment. He's playing SAL, they're not. He's more talented than them. So you never know, obviously. The Swedish International Federation at times with their selections and how they play can be mystifying in terms of who they play in big positions. You had Jakob Mover a few World Juniors ago playing an enormous role over players who are far more talented because, the coaches liked him. And you had, the best defenseman in the NHL, Hedman, not go to Olympics. And Johnny Adoya was taken ahead of him when Hedman was on pace for a 55-point season a few years back. They do like having one or two of those bigger defensive defensemen on the team, and I think that's where Hedstrom comes into this. And so maybe he plays a slightly bigger role than he should. And then the other guy we've not spoken about yet is another Detroit Red Wings prospect. It's Bylund. He was drafted, I think, 6th round a couple of years ago. He's playing Allsvenskan right now. He's solid in the Allsvenskan. He's playing pro hockey and doing a good job. But he's not as good as Andre right now either.
Right.
So I think Andre could play as high as number 5. He might play, number 6. But if he's playing number 7 or number 8, I think Sweden are misutilizing their talent on the back end because he's clearly better than 2 of the players they're taking and probably better than another one as well. Yeah.
So, kind of just going off of that, special teams, do you think there's any way Andre plays power play?
I think so. I think there's a good chance he plays power play too. for the under-18 team, he has been the guy. He might have gone second round, but I don't think it's that contentious to say he's more skillful than Grands and Valenda. It's just both those guys are 6'4" and horses. They skate fantastically well. But Andrae has better hands. He's probably got a better shot. He's a better passer. He has a better offensive zone IQ than both of them. And he's probably, in the SAL this year, he's been better than Grands at both ends of ice. Andrae had a rough game.
He's more like physical, isn't he?
Yeah, he's more physical than a man who's, in Helge Grand's, 7 inches taller than him or something like that. Andrae had a bit of a rough stretch after he was drafted. He had a brilliant preseason where I think he was top scorer for HV71 and over a point per game for them in preseason because Kinval was out, so he was playing power play 1 for them, and he was brilliant and looking like one of their best players. The season started, he played really well the first few games, and he was drafted by the Flyers, and all eyes, I guess, turned to him, and those first 3 games after he was drafted by the Flyers were probably the worst 3 games he's played at any level of hockey ever in his life.
Yeah, he's probably so nervous.
And the first game he played, they played the next day after he was drafted. I think he took a 4-hour flight north or something like that. Well, not 4 hours, but a few hours flight north to pretty much the Arctic Circle to play a game. So that one obviously was a bit of a tough one. But yeah, he had a bit of a rough spell. And a rough spell, quite frankly, compounded by his weaknesses at the moment. He is good defensively. He has a really active stick and he likes stepping up at the blue line. And he's also physical. But at the SAL, he got exposed a few times, being a bit too aggressive at the blue line. He made a move to stick check guys, and these guys are bigger and faster and not junior players. And they just breezed past him and got him off his footing. And also some ill-advised passes. He's usually a great passer, but he just gave away a few pucks. In the last 10 games or so, he's been a lot better. And if you actually watching him on a regular basis, and when you look at the underlying numbers, I think there's an argument that he's been one of HV71's best 4 defensemen. They have Erik Martinsson and Johannes Kinneval, who are both Swedish national team players, who are the clear number 1 and 2 there. But he has the 3rd best Corsi on the team. He's got the 3rd best Corsi close on the defense group. And they have a few quite frankly, Dave Haxtell style defensemen who death by 1,000 cuts, who give away the blue line too often, who don't move the puck too well. And maybe Andrae has made, some big mistakes that are glaring, but he's made 4 or 5 really big glaring mistakes. And for the rest of the time, generally drove play well. So yeah, I think there's a really good chance he'll be on power play 2. I think Soderstrom and Broberg will be the guys on the power play. Soderstrom was last year anyway. He's going to take that role. But when it comes to power play 2, you've got Berlund and Brandstam and Hedstrom who are not going to be getting a second of power play time. They're going to probably be penalty killers. Bjornfot can play the power play, but he's not an instinctive offensive zone player. So I think it comes down to me is they're going to go 4 defensemen on the power play, or are they going to go 3? If they go 3, maybe Johansson takes that second power play role. But Andrae has been the power play quarterback for his under-18 national team for multiple years. He's very good at the role. He's on the power play 2 in the SAL. So maybe he gets the number 3 role over Johansson. But if they go 4 defensemen on the power play, I think Andrae is going to be on the second unit. And I agree too, especially because if that's now Sweden's coach is the U18 coach, right? Eriksson. Eriksson was the under-18 coach, and he's the assistant. They have one member of the under-20 staff. I think it's Ronstrom. I can't remember his name specifically, but I think it's Ronstrom. One of the assistants who didn't catch COVID. He was the only member of the coaching staff not to, so he's effectively the head coach. Although Thomas Montaigne, the head coach, is still going to be assisted by a video link. But obviously you can't coach via video during a game. But I think Andrae will get his opportunities. I think they'll give him the opportunity to take a role because he is probably the 4th most talented defenseman on the blue line. And if he can do well in the pre-tournament games, I think he could potentially win that number 5 role and play some decent minutes with power play 2 time.
Yeah, right. And I think overall it's going to be a real solid tournament for all 3 of the players. I think all of them are going to have some pretty good roles, and I think we'll see them in really all situations, to be honest with you. I don't think there's going to be guys limited with ice time or injury or anything like that. So I think it's going to be good for Flyers fans to check it out this year. And if you do, I do have the schedule here just for both teams. So starting off, Team USA, all of USA's games are on NHL Network. So starting, they have the exhibition. So it looks like each team's playing 2 exhibition games. So USA playing December 20th versus Switzerland at 6 o'clock, and then December 22nd versus Finland at 6 o'clock again. And then their games 1 through 4 for the seeding. They play on Christmas Day at 9:30 versus Russia. That's 9:30 p.m. at nighttime. December 26th versus Austria at 9:30, same time at night. December 29th is versus Czech Republic at 2 o'clock. And then they play on New Year's Eve, December 31st versus Sweden at 9:30. And then for Sweden's exhibition, they play December 21st versus Canada at 6. December 22nd versus Switzerland at 9:30, and then their games 1 to 4. The 26th versus Czech Republic at 2 o'clock. December 28th versus Austria at 6. December 30th versus Russia at 9:30, and then they play again December 31st versus the United States at 9:30. So Sweden versus USA. It's going to be a very good game there to check out all 3 Flyers prospects in one game. But again, overall, I think it's going to be a really good tournament this year. I am going to be bringing you guys coverage. I'm going to be at least trying to cover every game possible that I can for the Flyers, for the Flyers prospects, I should say. But overall, Alex, seriously, thank you for joining us. I really appreciate it. I always love talking prospects with you and things like that. I'm sure we'll keep in touch throughout the tournament and things like that.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be on anytime.
All right, guys. So, Alex, one more thing I just wanted to ask. Where can people follow you? If you want to drop that down below, any places they can follow you, Twitter or websites, whatever.
Yeah, on Twitter, I'm at AV Appleyard. And then I'm writing articles, doing like 2021 draft prospects right now for Smart Scouting. So I just released an Anton Olsson report. The last few weeks I've been kind of releasing some Swedes. So Jesper Wallstedt, Oscar Olofsson, and also Lysell and Edvinsson. So 5 probably of the first round Swedes have already been put out there. And then in the lead up to the World Juniors, I'm going to be doing a few articles on guys who are potential actually Flyers picks. So Stanislav Svosel, who's going to be playing for the Czechs. He's probably going to be in that 20-25 range. Good puck-moving defenseman. Not the best skater, but solid there. And then also Helenius from the Swedes. He's a super talented forward, but has some issues. So both of those guys are going to be, potential around the Flyers picks. So it's definitely worth watching out for those to come out and have a read about them and watch their games.
All right. Well, it definitely sounds good, and I will be checking that out too. But again, guys, thank you, all of you guys, for the support lately with everything going on. The podcast, we do have merch. You can check that out. The link's in my Instagram bio. It's also on the About page on my YouTube. You can get a bunch of stuff, hoodies, shirts, COVID masks, stickers, just a whole bunch of stuff. But overall, we really do appreciate you guys with that. Remember, podcast articles, those links are on my channel. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. I'll see you guys in the next one, and goodbye.